Virgil, the guy who leads the offer of Dante through the Inferno, Purgata, and Paradisa, is the author of the most three famous works: the Euclogues, the Georgics, and the most famous, the Aeneid. Let's talk about his life. This is a bust of Virgil, which is next to his tomb, the entrance of his tomb, which some people go to as a pilgrimage. And he was born on October 15th of 70 BC, near Mantua. Mantua's right there. And then he started his education at the age of 5, and then he went to Milan. Well, that's where he studied. And then, finally, Rome, where he studied rhetoric, medicine, and astronomy. And astronomy. Yeah, that's correct. And literally right after one hearing, he decided that he was out and decided to abandon his teachings for philosophy. And also a poet. He decided that he would try to create some poems of his own, and decided to use the hexameter of Homer's, but in Latin. He wasn't the first to do this, but he was probably the best. And that's when he composed the Eclogues, a series of poems and poetry that is attributed to Virgil, but probably most of it isn't attributed to Virgil. So that's that. And this is basically where we get most of his poetry from, and also where we probably know the best. If we assume that all of these poems are actually created by Virgil, then we probably know a whole lot about him. But then again, we all know that this isn't probably written by Virgil, at least not most of it, because most of them are probably false information, and that's probably not what we really think. Around this time, the Civil War has been going on, and the Roman Empire was basically, fighting each other. After Augustus and Octavian just defeated the rebels, and then Augustus defeated Octavius, and then Augustus became, Augustus. Augustus, he decided to do a lot of things, and then decided that he would make the greatest empire ever. And this is exactly what he did. But for now, let's just go on with Virgil. Speaking of Virgil, this next talk is about the emperor and Virgil too. Turns out the emperor wanted to reward his warriors, so he made sure that the people in Italy decided to give them some land, which included Virgil's hometown. So Virgil probably hated Augustus. His next piece after the Euclogues was a farming manual called the Georgics. Yes, this is a farming manual, but it is also a story. I mean, it's one thing, and it's really easy to create a poem out of a war story, but then creating a story out of a farming manual, that's some talent. I mean, sure, it's about bees, and this is where he put his first contribution to the Augustan Empire. Bees. Now, bees, let me explain. Bees make sweet honey, but then again, they also are a good way for a hierarchy. They run under a monarchy, but not on the ones that are really tyrannical. Instead, they have a queen bee who is the sole protector of the whole hive, which is exactly what the Roman Empire is supposed to be. Augustus would be the whole sole protector of the whole hive. At least that's the instance. And this Georgics book is actually a pretty good impression on what it really means to be, a beekeeper. It teaches about farm, but then also it gives a little sense of the countryside and also how to farm. Bees. They make beautiful honey, of course, and that's exactly one of the reasons why I hate them, because they have a stinger, which I hate. I've never been stung by a bee once, but I don't want to be. I mean, it's one thing to make a great poem out of a war story, but then again, creating a story out of a great farming manual, and to just say that it's good, and I've read it before, but according to other people, it's actually a pretty good story. Now, that's some incredible talent. And speaking of war epics, his next story is actually a war epic too, called the Aeneid, which is supposed to be some sort of a continuation of the Odyssey and the Iliad. The main character Aeneas is a survivor of Troy, and because of a prophecy, it is said that Aeneas' descendants, which turns out to be Romulus and Remus, will be able to create an empire which will create a worldwide golden age. End of prophecy. And Aeneas, with a lot of intervention from Hera and a lot of support from his mother Venus, was able to end up in Italy, suited up, and fought a war to get his people to live in the place that it was rightfully theirs. And fun. And that is exactly after 3 lines of killing that person, that's where the Aeneid ends. Now, the Aeneid is actually incomplete, and here's why. Virgil, after meeting up with Augustus in Athens, was sailing back home when he was visiting a town near Megara, right here, when he suddenly got a fever. And along the way back to Italy, he told his friends to burn the Aeneid because he was unsatisfied with the final edits. This request was denied. Even the emperor himself decided that this book was too precious to be burned. Why? The emperor himself commissioned Virgil to actually write the Aeneid on his honor, and Virgil was like, hey, I'll write a book about the Roman history. And he did. But he only read only a select few books of the Aeneid to the emperor. One of them actually made his sister faint, or was it his wife? But the other books that Virgil didn't read to him actually, surreptitiously criticized and mocked Augustus. So technically, Augustus, actually was tricked into creating and publishing a piece throughout the Roman Empire that would actually criticize him. Good move, Virgil. Good move. He probably didn't want the emperor to realize that he was criticizing it, so that was probably one of the reasons why he wanted the manuscript to be burnt. Even if the emperor decided to try to destroy all Aeneid copies later in life, it probably didn't succeed because it's still here today. This is Virgil's tomb, and the lines and the things are written by the poet himself. And that is all I can say. So, what do you think? Is Virgil the Roman Homer? Probably. And is Virgil one of the best Latin poets? The Roman poets? Probably. He could also arguably be the best. That's your opinion to talk about. So I'll tell you guys in the next episode of the story of the Aeneid. See you soon. Night out. Peace.